الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so it says al-iqrar, right? So iqrar is basically the opposite of a da'wah, right? I say, Qais killed my dad and I want him executed. Okay? Iqrar is I killed so-and-so. Right? That's iqrar, right? You're confirming, like it's a claim against yourself, so to speak, right? So باب الإقرار. So هو لغة الإثبات من قر الشيء أي ثبت، وشرعا إخبار الشخص بحق عليه ويسمى اعترافا أيضا. والأصل فيه قبل الإجماع آيات كقوله تعالى كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم. وفسرت شهادة المرء على نفسه بالإقرار، وأخبار كالخبر الآتي على الأثر. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال في قصة العسيف. عسيف means أجير, means somebody who works for you. So there was a scenario of somebody working for a man and he was unmarried and he committed zina with the man's wife, right? So and it says في باب حد الزنا حد الزاني عفوا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم واغدوا يا أنيس إلى امرأة هذا. Go, right? Go, literally go in the morning, right? غدا means to go in the morning. راحة means to go in the afternoon, but we use it just means go forth to O Unais, to the wife of this man. فإن اعترفت فرجم يرجم فرجمها. So if she confesses to committing zina, then have her stoned to death. رواه الشيخان. So here, the fact that the Prophet is saying if she confesses, that means you can do إقرار, right? وفيه اعتبار ثبوت الإقرار مع فوائد أخرى يأتي بيانها في باب حد الزاني إن شاء الله تعالى. وعن أبي ذر رضي الله عنه قال قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قل الحق ولو كان مرا. رواه ابن حبان في صحيحه في ضمن حديث in a bigger hadith. وفيه ثبوت الإقرار ووجوب اتباع الحق فيه. والحق هو الحكم المطابق للواقع، يطلق على الأقوال والعقائد والمذاهب ويقابله الباطل. وأما الصدق فقد شاع في الأقوال خاصة ويقابله الكذب. So they're not the same thing. الحق. So here it says قل الحق, say the truth, right? i.e. أصدق, right? So there's a difference between the haqq itself and your saying of the haqq, right? So, and there's a difference between falsehood itself and you're saying the falsehood, right? So falsehood, al-batil, you're saying batil is called kadhib, right? Whether it's intentional or unintentional, right? It's also called kadhib. So making a mistake is called, if I say, for example, oh, it's whatever, Qais is X age, and I thought that's his age, and I was wrong, you say kadhabta. And it's like, I didn't lie, but I made أخطأت, right? So كذب يطلق على الخطأ ويطلق الإخبار بالباطل عمدا, right? طيب. It says وفرق بينهم بأن المطابقة تعتبر في الحق من جانب الواقع وفي الصدق من جانب الحكم, making the statement. فمعنى صدق الحكم مطابقته الواقع. واقع. What did you say, right? You said it is 15 minutes past the hour. I said, no, it's not. It's 13 minutes past the hour. فمعنى حقيته مطابقته للواقع. Is it actually true? That's called حق or باطل. As opposed to صدق or كذب is the إخبار of those things. Anyhow, it's kind of another point there. So what can we infer here is that it's only very generally established, right? The iqrar, there aren't specific hadith on it, it's just the general idea that exists, right? Okay, باب العارية with a shadda. والعارية بتشديد الياء وقد تخفف. العارية, right? العارية would normally mean a female that's naked, may Allah protect us, right? عارية, right? Doesn't something else, right? But عارية, the word is عارية, right? وقد تخفف وهي اسم لما يعار. It means the thing that is borrowed itself, right? And I believe it's on the pattern what? Um, عارية. It's on the pattern. Mm, so the root letters are, yeah, it's on the pattern what? Fa fa'lula or something like that. So it's a bit awkward, عارية, because the root letters um are are here. The shadda on the end, I'm not quite sure why how it's like that. So it's from a ta'awur is to lend to one another. يتعاوران, right? They lend to one another. So I'm not sure exactly why how this structure comes about. Ariya, right? Ariya would be really confusing because it would have a yeah for absolutely no reason. Okay, so anyway, I don't know what the root is. Sometimes you have some words that have very strange patterns. Allahu a'lam. Chimichai. Sorry, my cat wants to be part of the class again. Okay, so it says ismun lima yu'ar. So it means the lent item itself, right? The thing that is lent itself. Um, the thing that is lent itself. وَلِعَقْدِهَا, and it's also used for the contract of lending an item to somebody. No. من عار, from the verb عار, إذا ذهب وجاء بسرعة. So عار means he he went and came back quickly. وقيل من التعاور وهو التناوب. Not cool. Sorry, this cat is like jumping on my books. Wallahu a'lam. So anyway, it means to learn. And just a story. There's lots of phrases, lots of like kind of folklore that's very wise and very interesting. So I was once in a taxi in Jordan, and this guy he told me this story. And it's a very actually quite eloquent story. There's a lot of things in folklore that's actually very eloquent. Because it's kind of I don't know what you call it in literature, but it's kind of like it's a mirrored allegory. Um, so it's saying one thing, it's talking about something else. A bit like Animal Farm, you're talking about animals, but you're talking about humans, kind of thing. So anyway, so he said there's a story in Palestinian slash Jordanian culture, um, which begot a phrase. And it says the phrase is, yeah. So I'm gonna keep this cat out. Sorry, it's morning here. The cats have a lot. It's like they're still kittens, so they have a lot of energy. My apologies. So there's this phrase. The taxi driver told me he says there's a phrase which is "Thintain ma tan'aru." There are two things that should never be lent. Don't lend them to people. Al-himar wal-mar'a, a donkey and a woman. And it's the story goes that there was a man who had a donkey, and the donkey was pregnant. And his friend said, "Oh, I need to borrow your donkey." So he said, "I can't lend you my donkey because she's actually pregnant, and she's actually kind of maybe getting late in her pregnancy. She can't actually do anything, so I can't lend it to you." He says, "Bro, I really just need it. I really need a donkey. Please, please, please." And he's like, "I can't because she's pregnant, and she's gonna harm her. She might have miscarriage or whatever. She can't do that." He's like, "Bro, it's okay. You'll be all right." He's like, "Okay, fine, but don't overload her. Like just be really, really easy on her, because she's pregnant." And so the guy's like, "Don't worry about it. I got it. I got you. I'll look after her." So anyway, the guy borrows the donkey, overloads the donkey, and the donkey miscarries. Right? The donkey miscarries, which is not a nice thing for an animal, or a human being. So that's the story. But you can imagine it's a flipped, right? That basically a donkey is a weak animal, is vulnerable, and a woman is weak and vulnerable. So you don't lend, say, oh, I need somebody to come and help. Can your daughter just come and help me? You gotta cook or whatever. Or I need a, female slave to come and help me do this, whatever, like, because they get abused. They get abused. That's what happens. You don't do that, right? So that's this phrase in Arabic, well, at least in the Levant. Right? There's two things that should not be lent out, right? Women and donkeys, right? And anybody in a weak situation, of course. Okay, so wallahu alam, the root letters. So it says والأصل فيها قبل الإجماع قوله تعالى ويمنعون الماعون فسره جمهور المفسرين بما يستعيره الجيران بعضهم من بعض وأخبار منها ما سيأتي في الباب والحاجة الداعية إليها وهي مستحبة وقد تجب وقد تحرم وقد تكره كما بيناها في شرح المنهج وغيره. Right? So someone say, hey, can I borrow a knife? I want to go and stab somebody. Say, sure. Haram. Right? Oh, bro, I'm going on Hajj. Can you do this? وقد تجب. There's a good example here. He says كإعارة الثوب لدفع حر أو برد. Right? It could be obligatory. Right? So when he says it's obligatory, maybe somebody could research it in the Sharh al-Manhaj examples where it's obligatory. By default, I mean, obviously did another, right? He made another to become obligatory, right? Like, man, I'm so cheap. I never lend any of my stuff to anything. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go and buy a car, and the very first person who asks me to borrow it, I'll let them use it, right? For example, so that could become obligatory. But generally speaking, you're not obliged to do anybody favors ever, right? So even in a situation he mentions here, lending somebody a cloak, lending somebody clothes to wear because it's cold or hot, by default it's not going to be obligatory. Why? Because it could be achieved through ijara, right? Qais is freezing himself to death, okay, and I have a coat for him to wear. I'm not obliged to give it to him as a gift, but I could be obliged to sell it to him, right? Because he would die otherwise. Similarly, there's somebody who's in a famine, right? I could be obliged in a scenario of famine. You can, if you just because I'm obliged to keep you alive doesn't mean I'm obliged to lose my property. So I can say, yeah, here's the price, but you got to pay me back, or here's my car, but you got to pay me back, right? So, wallahu alam, with the issue of i'ara, is it obligatory? Like, oh, someone's in a dire straits, you actually have to lend it to them, when you can just rent it to them, right? And they just pay you back when they can, right? So you don't. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to say is, in general, the Sharia never asks you to do sadaqah. You're never obliged to overlook a right. You're never obliged to give somebody something. You're not obliged to do that. So there's lots of things that we do in normal life where we overlook lots of things, or we do things, or we see it as like that'd be really ajib. You're not actually obliged to do that. Like they say, it's recommended that if you're eating ice cream, you should give some to your kids. But like, what kind of guy would sit there eating ice cream in front of his kids? And not give the kids never had an ice cream in their life. And he's like, that's a really weird thing to do. They say it's recommended, like that if you have, something extra that's a treat, you should share it with your family. It's like that's a bit of a weird thing to do, right? Like that you don't share, So, but the point is, in terms of wujub, is it actually wajib? No, the default is it shouldn't be wajib. Right? Wallahu a'lam. Okay, and just again, side point, Sharh al-Manhaj. So Zakaria Ansari, as we know, he did an ikhtisar of the Minhaj al-Talibin called the Manhaj. Okay, and then he did a sharh of it, right? And then that has Hashiyat of Jamal, Hashiyat Bujayrami, I think Ibn Qasim as well. Right? So it's quite an important book, right? And he also has Tahrir Tanqih al-Lubab, right? And his commentary on it. And he has Sharh Rawd al-Talib, right? So that's right? And he also has the Sharh al-Ghurar al-Bahiyya. Sorry, Sharh what's it called? can't remember what it's called now. Bahja Wardiya. So Sharh Bahja Wardiya. Right. So he has a number of very large books in fiqh. Yeah, so it could be. So the point is, even if it's kfar kifaya, that doesn't mean you have to lose money, right? So it'd be like it's fard kifaya for this person not to die. So here's we are in Alaska. It's minus 20, and here's Qais with a t-shirt. Somebody has to save him, but it doesn't have to be at the cost of anybody. He just has to be saved. You know what I'm saying? So like, so oh, I have to give him my clothes. Yeah, I mean they're extra. You have to lend him. You have to rent the clothes to him because otherwise he would die. So the issue is he can't be left to die. But that doesn't mean that anybody has to lose out. You know what I'm saying? So like, you've taken my property now. So why do I have to lend some things to somebody? That's sadaqah, right? But why do I have to give sadaqah? Make sense? Yeah, by default, right? Okay. وعن سمرة بن جندب رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على اليد ما أخذت حتى تؤديه رواه أبو داود وغيره وصححه الحاكم. So the hand is held responsible for what it took until it gives it back. So this is inclusive of غصب, you took something without right? And i'ara, when you were lent something. But it is not inclusive of qard. So what's the difference between ariya and qard? What's the difference? So I say, lend me $10 or lend me your bike. What's the difference? Okay, money specifically is not necessarily the case actually, Qais. You can actually lend other things. So you can lend things, you can lend rice, for example. So here's an issue. You lend me $10, I get a lighter and I set fire to the $10. Do I what's happened? Have I destroyed your property? Whose property did I destroy? Mine. Because when you lend me $10, I don't owe you this note. I owe you its worth, right? I say, hey, borrow. I need some basmati rice, 10 kilos of basmati rice. Like, sure. And you give it to me, and I give you back another bag of basmati rice, 10 kilos. That's called a loan. Okay. So I get the rice, I consume the rice. I get the money, I spend the money, and I owe you its equivalent. Whereas Ariya, I owe you the Ain. I'm saying, lend me your car, and I will give your car back. Lend me your house for the weekend so I can stay there, and I will give the house back. Okay? Lend me your pen, and I'll give you the pen back. So in reality, when you use a pen, it's actually two contracts at the same time. You're doing a contract of a pen because you're using the ink. That's called a hadiyah. Okay, and then there's ariya, the pen itself. Does that make sense? Or for example, let's say, hey, can I borrow your car for like 2 minutes? Orphan, that means you actually giving me. Yeah, ariya is only i'arat al-ain. You can't do i'ara of anything else. It's not possible. You can't do i'ara for dhimma. That doesn't make any sense. You know? So it's like, here's my bike, take my bike, use it for the day and give it back. Right? As opposed to, here's some money, give me the equivalent back whenever you can. Right? Here's some ink for a printer, HP printer. You just return the equivalent, like you're borrowing it from me. It's something that is mithli. There's a like of it. So you're just going to give me. I'm not going to give you this cartridge back. I'm going to give you the likes of it back, right? So a card is always in the dhimma, whereas ariya is always ayn. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I stole Qais's car, or I borrowed Qais's car, right? What happens then? على اليد ما أخذت حتى تؤديه. I am liable for the damage to the car or for the value of the car until I give it back, whether I stole it with right or without right. It says فيه وجوب رد العين المعارة ونحوها على مالكها إن كانت باقية. فإن كانت تالفة, if it's destroyed now, right? بعين الاستعمال فعلى المستعير قيمتها. وإن كانت مثل right. So now it says if it got destroyed, okay, by the use of it itself, then I have to give you back its value, not its price, right? So Qais sells cars. He has a car for sale. I say, bro, you have a car for sale? Yeah. Can I just borrow it? 'Cause I'm just in town for a bit. I'm just in the Bay Area for a bit. He's like, sure, don't worry about it. So he has that car on Facebook Marketplace for 5,000. I borrowed it and I destroyed it. The car's only worth like three and a half. So I don't owe him the price. I owe him the قيمة, the value. وإن كانت مثلية كخشب وحجر على ما جزم به بعضهم, right? So it says even if it's مثلية, right? Something that could be replaced, same thing, right? So that means, yeah, that means you owe him the value, not the ayn. So that you would imagine, for example, that if I destroyed something that was mithli, okay, so like I'm borrowing a ruler, right? This is Amazon Basics ruler. So I borrowed it, I broke it. Given that it's mithli, should I just return a ruler like it? That would kind of make sense, right? And you say no. You do the qima. It says وَإِنْ كَانَتْ مِثْلِيَّةً عَلَى مَا جَزَمَ بِهِ بَعْضُهُم, right? So is this mu'tamad or not? I don't know. But that's that discussion. If something's mithli, the likes of it exists, as opposed to Qais's car. So Qais's car, once it's become used for a bit, it's not mithli anymore. It's not really mithli. So mithli is like Toyota Corolla 2027 with these specs, like because there's like 10,000 of them, right? That's mithli. There's a mithil of it, or like basmati rice, or something that is like a bag of something that's mass produced or something that exists in those kind of numbers, right? As opposed to something that doesn't have a mithil. Doesn't have each unit is not the same. So like a used car after a while is not really the same. It's not really the same as something else.
Sheikh, could I ask a question on this topic?
Go ahead.
So let's say on the same example, you come to the Bay Area and I gift you or I let you use my car. Um, and I have pretty high one, not yaqeen. I haven't signed a contract that I'm going to sell it for 15 grand. But like on Carfax, it says only for 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what's the discussion on why you wouldn't owe me 15 grand, but 10 grand instead?
Because it's not muhaqqaq. You haven't sold the car. It's not muhaqqaq.
E-
So the thaman is something that's muhaqqaq. It's realized. It's not realized yet. What's realized is the qima.
Even if I have like really high one that I could sell it for 15
No,
instead of 10.
it's not muhaqqaq. Yeah, it's not realized.
But if I then wrote on a contract and let's say someone I agree to sell it to someone,
Let's do it like this. For example, like, guys, bro, I need a car. I'm just here, like, and you're like, bro, this guy is gonna pick it up on Monday. So just lend it to me, bro. This is fine. On the condition that if you trash it, you got to pay me the price of it. I'm like, okay, done. Okay, so we agreed that basically, if I trash the car, scratch the car, I'm gonna buy it for its price. Okay, that's haram. Can't do that because
mm,
that's a contract of sale that's conditioned upon if you break it, you pay for it. So if you break it, you pay for its value. Not if you break it, you pay for its price. They're not the same thing,
mm, mm,
right? Because that's like what Prophet like Naha Rasulullah was that bay al munabada, right? You're like, oh, if you throw the thing, whichever thing you hit, you got to pay for, right? It's not like that. You can't do that. It's like either you're gonna buy it or not. So what's the solution? Buy it. Say, Christ, I'll buy it from you right now. But please, I'm asking you as a favor, buy it back from me on Monday. Done. So now it's my car. If I destroy it, whoops, I owe 15K, right? So you sold me the car on the gentleman's agreement, not an agreement, but gentleman's agreement that if I, what's it called? Yeah, if I, it's mine. خلاص, there we go. So I bought the car. My brother did this. My brother came to the Bay Area, he bought a car, had somebody who buys and sells used cars, right? Like the whole of the Palestinian community of the Bay Area, right? Go on, what's it called? Auction cars, right? It used to be better in the past. It's not just you don't make so much money anymore. But anyway, so he found somebody that does that, right? He said, "Listen, I'm coming from Kuwait. Yeah, he's coming from Kuwait to the Bay Area for a bit, just for like a month. Actually, he was in SoCal. Hey, I need a car. Found a car for me. He paid in cash. It's my car. And then, hey, when I leave, just sell it for me. So you could rent a car, right? That's one relationship. You could borrow a car, you could buy a car, but you can't say, "Hey, bro, if you do this, I got this sale. The guy's picking the car up on Monday, you know, or even yeah, then you can't do that and say, "Oh, but you got to promise me that you can't." It's not you can't just make up things as you go along. Unfortunately, a lot of Muslims do that. There'll be somebody, صاحب لحية, he's a religious, he's in the masjid, he does this, but when it comes to muamalat, it's just ala kayful. It's just like it's just they just make it up as they go along. You can't do that. No, you can't do that. So you could lend it with collateral. You say, look, I don't trust you, and I don't trust it. Even if you scratch it, I don't think you're going to pay for the damages. So okay, then leave some collateral then. Okay? But the collateral is against damages, and that's So a lot of these, for example, insurance scams, right? That's what you're doing. Is you're like that is not like it didn't cost that much to fix the car. The damage was not that. So now, with the insurance company, you showed them a number that's not real. You agree with your mechanic who's AAA whatever guy, like, oh yeah, you know, change the date on the crash or this or that, or change the money, and then you give him $2,000 because it's like it is not a $15,000 fix, it's like a $3,000 fix. So then a lot of these insurance scams are like that. Um, does that make sense? So you got to find so this is a key thing in finances, right? And Sheikh Qais, inshallah, when you're going to get married, you'll see this more. You're not obliged to put your neck out for people. You're not, like you put your neck out for me. Oh, Sheikh Fadi is coming, show respect to him. And the guy's irresponsible, right? He drives 120 miles an hour. He scratches the car up. He's not looking. He's doing fatwa, right? I used to do this all the time. I'll do Q&A, right? While I'm driving. And the guy's like, so now you're in a situation where you owe people money now, or you're in a situation where your family's like in an awkward situation. You're not obliged to do that. And that can actually be wrong. Like it's sadaqah in the wrong place, right? So like I want to help the whole world, but I also have to be responsible. That's also part of the deen. So like I'm going to sell it to him. Khalas. At the end of the day, if he totals this car over the weekend, I'm getting 15K one way or the other, right? Or I can't deal with him not paying up front. Okay, then have someone do daman. Someone's like, hey, I will sell you the car in installments, no problem. But you just arrived in the Bay Area. I don't know if you have a job now. I need to actually pay. I bought the car on a loan myself, so I need to make the payments. So I can't deal with you not paying. So find me somebody else in the masjid who will pay if you don't pay, right? So you help the world out, but it doesn't mean you don't have to cover your back, right? Particularly as a man and as a breadwinner, it's like you can't it's not responsible. Like you can't put your family in a situation where like everything's falling apart just to help the whole world. You know what I'm saying? That's for you by yourself. You want to do that? Khalas fi sabilillah. But now there's other people who have greater right on you, and you make life very difficult for you. Does that make sense? Loans, right? Like you put your house on loan and then you lost your whole house to help some sheikh out. It's like, bro, there's a reason. You had a reason why you bought that house. It was for the sake of Allah. It caused certain stability for your family. It had achieved certain benefits. Now you achieved a lower benefit. What was the point, right? So you have to be careful, particularly when there's other people who are responsible for. Well, my brother taught me this. My brother's very wise. My big brother, right? They say in Arabic, "Il dush kabir ishtari," right? Whoever doesn't have an elder in their family should go and buy one, right? So my brother, very wise. He was asking me once. I was like, he's like, I was traveling with my mum. He said, "Frida, are you fasting? Like a sunnah fast?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fasting." And he says, "Don't." I was like, "Why? Why shouldn't I fast? What's wrong? Why? How could you tell somebody not to do a sunnah? Like that's crazy." He's like, "Why? It's because you're with your mum." you need to be with it, awake together. You're traveling with us. There's more of a maslahah in looking after people than achieving the benefit of fasting. So the same kind of things, like, yeah, there's a lot of benefit in being the mutabarra' for the al-alam, right? You're giving this sadaqah, you're giving help to the whole world. That's fine, but there might be other priorities, and so being wise with money is part of the Sharia, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he borrowed money to feed his family, right? But he left the shield as collateral. So they're not going to, if he dies, they're not going to come and take the money from his wives. There's collateral there, right? So this is also part of the deen. Okay, وعن أبي وهب صفوان بن عمية بن خلف بن وهب بن حذافة القرشي الجمحي رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم استعار منه دروعا من حديد جمع درع بكسر المهملة وهي الزردية. So here, I know Zardiya, I thought that was a shield, but this is chainmail, is it not? I know Zardiya as a shield. Um, 1 second. So it should be chainmail. 1 second. Yeah. Yeah. It's chainmail. Yeah. Okay. So here, now this is a very complex scenario. So he said, this is رضي الله عنه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم استعار منه دروعا من حديد جمع درع بكسر المهملة وهي الزردية, which is chainmail, يوم أي غزوة حنين. فقال له أغصب يا محمد؟ قال بل لا عارية مضمونة. رواه أبو داود وغيره وصححه الحاكم. So, what's the context? Here is a non-Muslim. At the time, he was a non-Muslim. And so the Prophet ﷺ borrows chainmail from a non-Muslim. So if you take chainmail into war, what would usually happen to chainmail in a battle? Gets damaged. So the question that we're asking here is two things. Number one, when you lend something to somebody, are they liable? Are they damin? Okay, so when we're talking about daman, you can have three relationships or three labels of daman. Okay, or what we call your yed, how you interact with it, your yed. One is called yed al-daman, meaning your interaction with that thing is that you are liable unconditionally. You're liable unconditionally. It's called yed al-daman, right? Qais takes my phone without my permission, and he starts playing frisbee with it with his brother. I'm like, Habib Albi, what's your problem? And he's like, oh, I'm just playing Sheikh, Manish, right? And then he's passing it back to me, and before it gets into my hand, it drops. I'm like, Qais, I'm sorry, you're liable for damages. So, oh, Sheikh, I didn't mean to break it. I know, but I didn't give you permission to stop playing frisbee with my phone. Why did you pick it up, Aslan? Okay, why did you even do that? It's like, Sheikh, I was just playing. I didn't mean to break it. I'm really sorry. I'm like, I don't care whether you meant to or not. You're not sinful for breaking it, right? But you are liable for damages because you picked it up without my permission, right? As one sheikh, I picked his shoes up for him out of adab, and he looked at me and said, "You're liable," like, because it's true. If you pick up someone's shoes without permission, you're liable for damages. So the issue is, according to the Jumhur, the Shafi'is and actually I don't know about the Hanbalis, but the Shafi'is and Malikis, we say if you lend somebody something, you let them use your house for the weekend, you lend them the car, they are liable for damages. Okay, they're liable for damages. Okay. So here Imam Shafi says something really interesting, right? So the person says, Ya Rasulullah, oh Muhammad, you are taking my chainmail into a situation where it's likely to get damaged. So is this ghasb? Are you just stealing it from me because you're the ruler? And he said, La bala ariya madmuna. Rather, this is a loan, a borrowing that is madmuna, that is guaranteed. So someone might argue that the Prophet ﷺ changed the liability, that basically that you can, given the contract, he said, I'm borrowing it. And when he added the word madmuna, that means you could have a non-madmuna ariya. You could have ariya that is not liable, right? And that's the argument of the Hanafis. Hanafis, they say, if you lend somebody your phone, you lend somebody the bike, you lend somebody your house for the weekend, lend somebody their car, they're not liable for damages, right? Because you let them. Their yed is called yad al-aman. Their interaction with it is yad al-aman. They're not liable for damages unless they use it in the wrong way. Okay? So that's how they say. Imam Shafi says, is daman liability, is it something that is part of the shari'at al-muta'aqidin, right? Is it something that contractors can choose to play with? Like, I'm going to say, I'm borrowing it on the condition that I'm liable or that I'm not liable. Like, is that something that we can do? Does the sharia allow you to change liability? The answer is no. Liability is something defined by the sharia. It's not something that you can choose, right? You say, hey, I'm picking this up on the condition not liable, or on the condition I am liable. You can't do that. I'm selling you this car right now, and you're liable for damages even if you don't pick it up. So you can't do that. Before they they before they pick up the car, I'm not liable for damages. You're liable. That's just how it is. So liability is not something that you can. It's something there in the motherboard of the Sharia. You cannot change it. So here, when it says ariya madmuna, that is a description of the nature of ariya, not a description of the nature of this contract. So we use this, the Shafi'is and the Malikis, we use this to say that ariya, you're always liable for damages. So if you borrow someone's car, borrow someone's fork, borrow someone's phone, whatever it is, you drop it, you have to pay for for damages or whatever it is. Okay. As opposed to, for example, as opposed to renting, you rent someone's house, right? So if Qais says, Sheikh, you're in the Bay Area for 2 weeks, yeah, here I have a car, don't use it. Bismillah. He's like, oh, I'll pay a little bit. He says, no, 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 it's okay. So no, no, I'll pay. And he's like, no, no, no. So I'll pay $1. He's like, okay, Sheikh, give me $1. So I paid Qais $1, okay, to rent his used car for 2 weeks. Shifted the contract from Ariya to Ijara. Okay? If the car breaks down within 1 week, I need 50 cents back because I paid $1 for the 2 weeks. And it's Ijara Ta'ain, this car itself. Okay? If I destroy the car gets totaled, it's his loss. Was I speeding? No. Was I driving recklessly? No. Normal use. How many people in the car? It's a 5-seater. How many people in the car? 5 people. Okay, خلاص. Normal use, right? Normal use. I can also, for example, I can now rent it out to somebody else. So I'm renting it for $1 from Qais, and I rented it back to his brother for $500, and I made 499 out of it. So I can sublease because it's an ijara contract, and I own the manfa'a. I own the use, and I'm not liable for damages. So I subleased it to his brother, and his brother subleased it to some other guy, and that person subleased the other guy, and the other guy totaled it. Qais loses the car. That's ijara. Whereas ariya, I can't I can't lend it to somebody else because I don't own the use of it. I didn't buy the use of it. It's not mine. And I'm liable for damages. So if I give it to somebody else and they broke it, I'm liable for damages. If I'm speeding or not speeding, I'm liable for damages. Khalas. Scratch the car, whatever it is, not my fault. Whether it's my fault, it doesn't matter. Right? I'm liable for damages. Right? So it changes the relationship if you're borrowing versus so uh, the person who is doing the person who's doing ijara, if you're renting something, the renter is not liable if the wall falls down, if something is not liable for those things. Whereas in ariya, the musta'ir is liable. Okay. So he says, وفيه مشروعية العارية وأنها مضمونة على المستعير والمراد ضمان ما تلف بغير استعمال المأذون فيه كما مرت إشارة إليه آنفا. right? As opposed to, so there's so there's damage which happens from the permission itself. Like I borrowed a car. Here we go. I borrowed the car from Qais. Okay, when the car drives, do you wear away the tires? Yeah. So I borrowed it for 2 years. Do you think eventually the tires will run out? Yeah. So then I give him back this car with worn out tires. Like, yeah. So that's damage, but he allowed me to do that, right? That's al-isti'mal al-ma'dhun fi, as opposed to something else. Somebody's crashed into me, I crashed into the wall. That's not the isti'mal. So crashing into the wall or uh, um, is not part of the isti'mal al-ma'mun fi, right? As opposed to otherwise, like I allowed you to do this, that means I'm allowing you to do what naturally, al-idhnu bil-shay, idhnu bima yatarattabu ala shay, right? Whenever you allow somebody to do something, you are allowing what normally results from that, right? So that's totally different. you know. So using like I borrowed your car, well, I put on miles, right? So do I have to pay you for the reduction in value? So I drove it like can I borrow your car to go? I want to go all the way down to LA. So from SF to LA, from LA down to San Diego, back twice. That's a lot of miles. I'm going to reduce the value of the car, right? And I've used up certain things, but that's that you told me I can do that, right? So what we're trying to say is the reduction of damage. So telef, meaning the card is totaled, right? Or what's it called? Or damage that's not directly resultant of the use that was allowed to use for. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's the answer. Let's say for the normal wear and tear. Yeah. So with fuel, I think it's a little bit different because a fuel usually basically going to be based on an orf, right? Because if you think about like fuel in the past is going to be like fodder. Like so when you lend me your horse, I'm going on Hajj, I need a horse. Does that mean you're giving me its fodder? No. But the issue is like with it, when you lend me a camel, it doesn't have you don't have like how much chemical potential energy inside this camel right now. You don't have that, right? Here's a truck, you lend me a truck, right? And it's like full, and then I gave it back empty. It's like that's a lot of fuel, right? So that's slightly different. So I think it'd be orphan ada, right? Like what's normal? If it's normally done that you lend it at, 3/4, you give it back 3/4, it's gonna be orphan ada, wallahu alam. So i.e. what I mean by orphan ada, i.e. is the hiba, is the giving of the fuel considered normal or not? Like, is it normal that yeah, that's what you would do, right? Or like Qais has some chewing gum, right? Like there are like 2 packets of chewing gum, and I've eaten them, and he's like, yeah, that's what you do. That's normal, or it's not normal, right? You know what I'm saying? What's normal? What's not normal? Yeah, makes sense, Amar. Like even with a camel, like I borrowed your camel. Look at the fat stores of the camel. Do you think they're going to measure the fat stores of the camel? Like no. So that's right. But the fat stores are kind of like more essential than when you say like how much fuel there is there, right? But you could imagine, for example, like fat stores on the camel is somewhat analogous to something like brake fluid, right? So do you think Qais, it's not normal, like Qais lends me his car for 2 weeks. Okay. He's like, look, I'm just taking a picture. Here we go. It's like, it's full. He said, I filled it up for you. I'll give it back full, right? It's kind of maybe that would be kind of off, right? But brake fluid, I find it a bit weird if he like checks how much brake fluid there is and be like, oh, I'm gonna check the brake fluid, you know? It's reduced by 5%, like Habibi, sure. No worries. I'm not gonna borrow from you again next time because you're kind of annoying. You know what I'm saying? Like brake fluid. It's a bit weird, right? Or like windscreen wiper fluid. Like he checked how much windscreen wiper fluid is, and then he checked again when I gave it back. That would be a bit weird, right? It's not normal. That's not our orf, right? I think in many places in the West, right? In this economy, who knows? Right? Uh, does that make sense? As opposed to the seat, I give the car back and like I've sold his seats like Habibi, what happened to the seat? It's not normal that you use the seat like you sold the seat, right? That's not a normal use, right? Or the rims, he had some nice rims. I sold them. Like, bro, what are you doing? It's not normal use at all. Okay, makes sense, inshallah. Okay, okay. So now it says Bab al-Ghasb. Al-Ghasb. Mhm. So what I was saying is, I say, Ammar, you can use my house for the weekend. Okay? So you open and close the door 20 times. So does that wear away the hinges? Yes. So can I charge you for damages to the hinges? No, because there's normal use, right? And it's going to reduce. And then I rented the house for 10 years. Obviously, eventually the door's going to fall off. I said, what did you use the door for? Well, I opened it and I closed it like a million times. That was all. So eventually the door will fall off. So do you have to pay me for damage to the wall, door? No, because I allowed you to use the house and to open and close the door, and eventually it will fall off. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to you knock the wall down accidentally. You were bringing in some machinery and you knocked the wall down. I allowed you to bring some machinery in, but then you knocked the wall down, right? So knocking the wall down is not part of normal use. So in ijara, if I said, for example, this is a factory, and I said you're allowed to bring in machinery, and in the process of doing due diligence, the wall was accidentally knocked down, you're not responsible. In Ariya, you would be responsible because you're liable for damages. Um, yeah, afa samawiyya, act of God, you're liable, right? Whereas in ijara, you're not liable for act of God, right? The tree fell on the house, you got to fix it. A meteorite hit the car, you got to fix it, right? Whereas in ijara, you don't have to fix it. So they call it afa samawiyya, act of God. Okay. باب الغصب, right? الغصب هو استيلاء على حق الغير بلا حق وهو حرام كما سيأتي. Now it's not necessarily haram. So غصب is not, it's not an issue really. Here we're talking about financial relationships. So when you say غصب is haram, what if you're not mukallaf, right? So you can talk about غصب for someone who's not mukallaf. You can talk about غصب خطأ, right? I accidentally picked up your phone. Okay, I thought it was mine. Same phone, right? Ahmad and I were big into the new phones. When's is it new iPhone out yet? Whatever, if iPhone 16 or whatever it is that out yet, or 17 or don't know. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. In October, قيس. الله يسامحك قيس. منهمك في الدنيا. الله يسامحك. I'm joking, قيس. Okay. So October, right? Oh, I see. Anyway, so anyway, iPhone 18 is coming out. So Ahmad and I, we both order the same thing, okay? And we're picking it up from the same shop because they can deliver it, whatever it is. We both have to sign. So we pick up the wrong thing, okay? You pick up the wrong thing. So it was a khata. You can't describe that as halal or haram, but the ghasb still applies to it. So I have been using Ammar's phone for the last 3 months. He has been using mine for the last 3 months. We owe each other money. Okay, we owe each other money, right? That's called ghasb, right? My wife had coffee yesterday, and the sister, and there was she was sitting at the table with his sister, and they put the coffee next to her. And she's like, "Oh, they got my thing wrong." So my wife thought that they got the order wrong, and she's like, "Whatever, I'll just drink it anyway. It's okay." So she starts drinking it. It turns out that's actually the sister's one. So she drank the sister's coffee thinking that it was hers. Is that haram? It's not haram. But the ahkam al-ghasb still apply, right? The ahkam al-ghasb still apply, right? So it's not a moral issue. So ghasb is very different to sadaqah. Sadaqah is like a had punishment. It has a very specific thing. Ghasb is unintentional or unintentional use of someone else's property or destruction of someone else's property, right, or consumption of someone else's property, right? And how do you rectify that? That's called a ghasb, right? So it's related to ariya because in both scenarios you're liable for damages, right? That's why they come together. So غصب هو استيلاء على حق الغير بلا حق, right? عمدا أو خطأ, right? وهو حرام إذا كان عمدا, right? والأصل فيه قبل الإجماع آيات كقوله تعالى لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل, right? And this is also the ayah. My son asked me the question. They said, Daddy, can somebody pay you to do nothing? Like, Freed, I want you to like freeze. I'll pay you to like freeze and not blink for 3 seconds. I'll give you $1 million. So is that halal? It's not halal. Why? Because that's not a use, right? You can't buy nothing. You cannot buy, for example, I'll sell you the electrons, the electron that just left, the proton that just left my hand, right? I'm going to find that proton and sell it to you. It has no use. Can't do that, or the dust that's on the edge of my cup has no use. So you can't sell things that have no use, and you cannot be paid for a service that has no use. So لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل, right? That's why you can't sell najasa, and you can't I don't know, Mr. Beast, right? Paying somebody to slap themselves in the face and all that, or I'll pay you to eat as many baked beans as you possibly can in 10 minutes. You can't do it because that's not a manfa'a. It has no benefit, right? لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل. So here, same thing is you have bil batil, is you have taken someone else's property or usufruct for nothing. So I asked Sheikh Amjad a question once. I said, look, I lean against your car for 1 second, right? The use of leaning against someone's car for 1 second has no muqabil maddi. You don't pay somebody to lean against their car for an hour. So I've taken your right? Qais says, this is my favorite car, please don't touch it. And I said, watch me, I'm going to touch it. So I have used his property without permission. It is ghasb, but like لا يقابل بالمال. You know what I'm saying? لا يقابل بالمال, because it's not a thing. Okay? So in the Shafi school, you can't do that. You can't say, if you make a 3-pointer, I'll give you 20. You can't do that because it's not. But you could do so, for example, if you can shoot that target within these, you can do it to do with things with jihad, but you can't do things like that if you, right? Yeah. Is it just like looking at cars in the showroom? Yeah. Let's say, for example, don't look at the cars in the showroom, but I just did. So how much do you pay for that? You don't pay for anything for that. So that's ghasb, but there's no money to pay. So it is haram, but there's no money to pay. You know what I'm saying? So there's some things where you can abuse somebody, but it's such a small abuse that there's a haqq on Judgment Day, but la yuqabal bimal, because the likes of that would never be sold. Like it doesn't. So what we're trying to do is trying to say, oh, you took something from me. Okay, you had my iPhone for 3 months. Okay, how much would it cost to rent an iPhone for 3 months? Okay, but like you had it for a second. Like how much does it cost to rent? You can't rent an iPhone for a second. So you just picked up my iPhone without permission, put it down again. Okay, how much do you have to pay me? Nothing. So you're liable for damages, but then nothing happened to the phone. So there's no repercussions in the dunya because you couldn't pay somebody for that. There's no way to judge it, right? Does that make sense? Like there's no way to actually transfer that into a financial thing. So therefore there's nothing there really. And so we don't really talk about that in ghasb because la yuqabal bimal, right? It's a bit like, for example, destroying someone's you kill someone's dog. La yuqabal bimal. It's not mal. You know what I'm saying? So would you have to pay somebody if you just kill their dog? Nothing. But it's haram, right? You can't do that. And there's repercussions in Judgment Day, but there's no, right? So here it says, you know, على حق الغير بلا حق, right? So, والله أعلم. Okay, that makes sense. Um, to be looked at, sat in opened, etc. Yeah, so the guy says you can look at it, but you can't sit on it. So you just sit down on it for 3 seconds. And the guy's like, bro, get off. So what do you have to pay them? Like you know what I'm saying? Nothing. As opposed to maybe something, because that's not something you can rent. Like you can't rent like a car to sit down in for 3 seconds, It's not really. So you'd be like, hey, well, I'm doing a photo shoot, so we need to can we come to your showroom and take some photos for like an hour? Like you pay for that, right? So maybe that's slightly different, doing a presentation on, whatever. But like that's something that's yuqabal bimal, but that's not yuqabal bimal. So anything la yuqabal bimal. So there could be many things like another example of that is, for example, the wife says to her husband, "You're the biggest loser in the face of the earth. I'm so unhappy. I can't believe I ever agreed to marry you." So what does she owe him? You know, nothing. Because what? So as opposed to, oh, he refuses intercourse, or during intercourse, just before intercourse, she continually insults him during intercourse, makes it impossible to sleep with her. That's now like, oh, you qabal bimal, like, oh, you don't she gets no nafaqah. So there's certain things like that's haram, and there's repercussions in the akhirah, but there's no repercussions in the dunya. Like you can't, that doesn't mean anything, right? That's not considered, like we're talking about nushuz, like what is technical nushuz? Like that's not technically nushuz, meaning there's no financial court repercussions on that, right? Does that make sense? So remember Sheikh Ahmed Hassanat, it's like, yeah, being insulted by your wife, that's normal, adi jiddan, right? It's like, that's not, like, this, I mean, meaning it's halal, right? But there's no court repercussions on it, right? Or that she's always like that, you know? So she cusses him out non-stop for day to night. And that's how it's been since they got married. So now he's like, oh, it's very difficult to sleep with her because she's just insulting me the whole time. So yeah, but that's how she's always been. There's different, right? So there's no repercussions of that, right? So there's certain huquq, right? Like you made somebody feel really bad, right? There's no like, what do you pay for that, right? So in reality, owing people money and paying people money is really good because it means it's done. You know what I'm saying? Whereas other huquq are very dangerous. Like you made somebody feel, Qais, for example, his brother made him feel bad about his Eid gift when he was like 5. So on Judgment Day, he's like, yeah, you kind of ruined my day, you know? Like I had a really good Eid gift, it made me feel bad about it. Like, well, there's no financial, so there's no way his brother can pay him back. So it's very, what it means on Judgment Day, it's going to be there. Like, oh yeah, you made me cry on Eid and made me think that my Eid gift was really lame, because you were jealous. So there's lots of these things where it would be really nice if you could just pay for it in the dunya and get it done with, even if it's expensive. But that's the problem. There's all these huquq adamiyya, right, that you can't pay off. There's nothing really to do. You can do istihlal, you say, please forgive me, right? Everybody, if ever wrong, please forgive me. But there's lots of people that you're not going to meet, That kid who, you threw the paper airplane at his head and everybody laughed at him, and like, don't even know his name. You know what I'm saying? So may Allah forgive us, right? Okay. So it says, عن أبي الأعور سعيد بن زيد وهو بن عمرو بن نفيل ابن عبد العزى القرشي العدوي رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من اقتطع أي من أخذ شبرا مثلا, like شبر means a handspan, tiniest amount, من الأرض ظلما طوقه الله إياه يوم القيامة من 7 أراضين بفتح الراء أراضين أكثر من سكونها. You can say أرضين or أراضين. أي جعل ما اقتطعه منها في عنقه كالغل, he's going to basically get that piece of earth, right, and put it around his neck and strangle him with it on Judgment Day. كما قال تعالى سيطوقون ما بخلوا به يوم القيامة. قيل طوقه إثم ذلك. So it's either going to be the piece of land or the sin of taking a piece of land. ويلزم كلزوم الطوق في العنق, and it will stick around him like a necklace or something like around you. Right? وقيل حمله مثله من 7 أراضين وكلفه إطاقة ذلك وطول عنقه. وقيل خسف به. He will be he will be made to go down and the earth will swallow him down 7 earths. في رواية البخاري خسف به يوم القيامة إلى 7 أراضين. I'm going to go to 7 depths of the earth. رواه والحديث رواه الشيخان. So the point is stealing property, right? Stolen property, right? وفيه تحريم الغصب وتغليظ عقوبته وذكر الشبر والأرض فيه مثال فغيرهما كذلك. وحكم الغصب ولو غير محرم. Notice وحكم الغصب ولو غير محرم, as I mentioned in the beginning, right? الضمان, you're liable. برد المغصوب إلى مالكه. You accidentally took someone's cup, you gave it back, right? إن كان باق وإلا فيرد مثله. إن كان مثليا, I took your iPhone, give the iPhone back. برد أقصى قيمة من الغصب إلى التلف إن كان متقوما. So now I have had accidentally or intentionally, I have had Ammar's iPhone 18 for the last 3 months. Look over the last 3 months, okay? And it got destroyed, okay? It got destroyed. So now I look at the highest possible price that Ammar could have sold that for. أقصى قيمته, right? So it went up and down, the value, not the price. So the price and value are very much connected. Okay, what's the difference in reality? Forget fiqh. What's the difference between price and value in reality? Like if everybody set the same price and everybody was happy to pay the same price, would it have the same value? Yeah, right? So so here, for example, in Malaysia, fuel prices are fixed. Doesn't matter which place you go to. When you buy 95, it's the same everywhere. Okay? So the price of fuel does not change. Let's say, for example, okay, like in a Bay Area, right? Qais, depending on where you are, you have different prices, right? It's going to closer to SF, it's going to get more. Further away from SF, it's going to go down, right? So there will be value in an area and value overall, and then there's a price which is how much I'm selling it to you for, right? So the price could be more or less. That's the specific sale. That's the price. So here we're saying that value goes up and down, right? So the week that it came out, he could have sold it the next second. So at that moment, I had paid for it 2 years in advance, right? And the day that he picked it up, and I picked it up instead, he could have sold it for $20,000. The next day it went down to 10. The next day it went down to whatever it is, not that much. However much is a New York phone, I don't know, right? So so I have to pay him. So I've had it for 3 months. What is the highest value over that whole time? That's what I have to pay, right? Same thing for rental. I've had his car. So here, let's say if it's destroyed, Afwan. If it's destroyed, okay, if it is destroyed, I have to give him the highest value over that whole period of time, from the time that I took it to the time that I quote unquote give it back, or telef when it ends. So the time of telef, when was it destroyed? Okay, I have to give him the highest value. Okay, now if it's still there, I have to give it him back plus the rent. So I didn't realize I was actually staying in his hotel room. He turned up, it's like, oh, sir, there's actually all the rooms are booked out. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. I have a room that's booked, right? And it turns out they gave me his room for these 2 weeks. So I have to give him the highest value of renting that room, that car, that whatever it is for that time. Does that make sense? Now that's a bit different, bit complex, so I'm not giving the room back. But let's say again the phone. I've had his phone for 3 months and then I give it back to him and it's not destroyed. So you say, what is the maximum you could rent that? You could not theoretically, not oh I could find somebody I can pay them to no. Saying what is the maximum kima of rental, the value, maximum rental value of a phone like this for the last 3 months, right? X amount. That's what I have to give it. Okay. Okay. وقد يختلف التحريم عن الغصب كما أشرت إليه بأن يأخذ مال غيره ظانا أنه ماله. Right. وفيه أيضا أن الأراضين سبع وهو موافق لقوله تعالى 7 سماوات ومن الأرض مثلهن وما تأويل المسألة في القرآن بالهيئة والشكل والسبع الأراضين في الحديث ب7 أراضين مع 7 أقاليم فبعيد. So, so the question is, what on earth does that mean? What does 7 earths mean? Allahu Alam. Just like 7 heavens, we don't know what that means. And importantly, do certain Muslim scholars talk as flat earthers? Yes, they do. That is important to understand that. There are certain Muslim scholars, the way that they talk as flat earthers. Now, was the Muslim world, and in fact, most of history, were people flat earthers? Did people always used to think the earth was flat until they went to space? Absolutely not. Go out, anybody who goes to sea, you can see the curvature of the earth. You go on the sea, you experience the curvature of the earth. So anybody who's at sea, that you experience it. It's like, yeah, of course the earth is a ball, right? That's what you experience, right? So it's not something that was hidden, and that's a kind of pseudo problem that everybody used to think the earth was flat until whatever, Galileo or whatever it was. Right? That's not that's not true. However, you do find certain Muslim scholars talking about the earth as if it's flat. Okay. Like I believe Imam Ahmad, he said that Zawal is the same time on all places of the earth. It's narrated from him at least. So the sunset and sunrise is different, but noon is the same everywhere. Which doesn't make any sense if you think about it at all, right? I don't know quite how you could even conceive of it, but anyway, it's narrated from Imam Ahmad, wallahu alam. So you will find flat earth language in different things. So here is, this would make sense if you could imagine like the earth is flat, right? And then there's 7 levels that go down and 7 levels that go up. That'd be quite nice, right? There'll be kind of a more convenient understanding of things, right? And another question, is it obligatory to believe in that the earth is not flat? It's not obligatory. Okay, is it obligatory to believe that Pakistan exists? Or that Napoleon Bonaparte conquered large areas of Europe? It's not obligatory. So is it possible? Is it logically possible? Or sorry, not logically possible. Is it jaiz adatan? Is it jaiz adatan that Napoleon Bonaparte didn't exist and he never took over large areas of Europe and invaded? It's possible it didn't happen. It's not jaiz, right? That's impossible. So that's thabit bit tawatur that Napoleon existed and that he took over large areas of Europe and etc. Right? It's so it's jaiz aqlan, right? It's jaiz aqlan that didn't happen, but it's not jaiz adatan. Like that doesn't happen. So tawatur is based on adas. This doesn't usually happen. It doesn't happen that all these people tell you Pakistan exists, and even when you went there, it was all a hoax. Like that's not possible, right? So knowing about like mentioning al-blad in Na'iyah, Like, does that area exist? Of course it exists. There's a place called Pakistan. It's a country. People from Pakistan. It's divided into different areas. It has to exist. It cannot be a hoax, right? Similarly, that certain historical facts like that's established. You know, the white people were always in America, and it's a hoax that they actually came from Europe. You know, that's impossible, right? So there's certain historical things that mutawatir, right? And so Allahu alam, so landing on the moon is not mutawatir, right? That man landed on the moon, that's not mutawatir, right? And it's up to you if you believe that or not. You want to believe them or not, it's up to you. But for example, like I think the idea that the earth is a big ball, right? Like it's mushahad, right? We've seen it, and with multiple independent sources, such that it would be impossible that it's a hoax. Does that make sense? Like it's impossible. So that means that you're denying al-his. You're like actually denying his, which is actually not. You can't do that. You can't deny. Say I don't think I exist. Or I don't think there's a computer in front of me. I don't think. You know. Like you can't do that, right? In Carl, so you can question certain like, oh, maybe the assessment is like this or whatever it is, or maybe it's a bit more complex. But you can't say, for example, like you get all these different people, they all go into space, they go up high, and they're like, we observe this. You fly over the globe, you see it, and you're like, I don't believe it. You can't do that, right? So in which case, then, flat earthers, there's a problem there. I'm not saying the kuffar, but I'm saying there's a problem, right? So I'm not saying that certain scholars of the past were doing that because they weren't looking at what we're looking at, right? And so it could have been dhanni in the past, but it's not dhanni today. Wallahu a'lam. And this also is in contrast to the existence of dinosaurs. So if you deny the existence of dinosaur fossils, that's also inkar something mutawatir, right? It's mutawatir that dinosaur fossils exist. But what about denying dinosaurs themselves? I don't believe dinosaurs ever existed. Is that mutawatir? It's not mutawatir. So you're like, I don't think they ever existed. No, okay, it's up to you. So there's a difference between denying something that's there and denying something inferred. So we infer from fossils that dinosaurs existed, right? That's an inference, but that's not the same as that's not mutawatir itself. So what can be inferred from mutawatir is not mutawatir. They're two different things. Someone's like, yeah, I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them there. Like, okay, that's your own opinion. It's fine. That's not inkar at tawatur. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, everyone's following, inshallah. Okie dokie. So وعن أبي بكرة yeah, but it's not that bad, right, Ammar? So tawatur they talk about propaganda, right? So it's what is it like it's such that so tawatur is like even if people were trying to lie, they wouldn't be able to pull that off. You know what I'm saying? Like so there's certain things like with AI, for example, like genuinely you could question the news, like suddenly like AI could like create news, right? And you're like, whoa. But then you start doing a bit more research and they can't pull it off on that level. There's certain things like you couldn't pull it off now. Now you can explain things, right? Look at 9/11, right? Let's give YouTube a break. Just don't forget to follow me on UFO witnessing. I have a whole channel on it. I'm joking. Okay, وعن أبي بكرة رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في خطبته يوم النحر بمنى إن دماءكم وأموالكم وأعراضكم. So أعراض is the plural of عرض and the plural of عرض. Okay? As opposed to عرض, which is the plural of عرض is عروض. Right? So something that is معروض للبيع, right? You call it it's being offered for sale. Okay, that's called عرض, which is to offer something. The plural of that is عروض, right? There are sales on, right? There's an عرض on this thing. There's a sale on it. It's being offered for sale. That's called عرض. As opposed to عرض with a fatha on the ra, which is an accident, something that comes over something, right? The what's it called? The side effects of this, the أعراض of this thing, the عرض. هو أعراض من أعراض زكام, for example, the things that side effects of getting a cold or whatever it is, side effects of medicine, or one's height and one's width and one's color. These are called a'rad. These are accidents from the in the philosophical term. Okay, that's called a'rad, as opposed to and ird. So fi'lun and fa'alun, they both get usually pluralized on af'al. So the plural of amal is
عمل.
amal. The plural of dhikr is
أذكار.
adhkar. The plural of wird is awrad. Okay, so fi'lun, the plural of fi'l is af'al. Okay, so fa'al, fi'lun, and fu'lun. Thuluth, the plural of thuluth is athlath. So af'al is usually the plural of fa'alun or fi'lun or fu'lun, as opposed to fa'lun. The plural of wird was awrad, but the plural of ward is wurud. Exactly. Rose, right? So Ammar, when you get married, you're gonna buy wurud, not awrad, right? No more awrad, only wurud, inshallah. Okay? So roses, right, is wurud, ward, right? Um, ذكر, dhukur. That's different. Dhakar is not a good example. I think you can say adhkar as well. But dhakar, the plural of dhakar, fa'al, is not dhukur, is dhukur. It should be adhkar. But anyway, that kind of, but generally speaking, fa'lun becomes fu'ul, right? Whereas fi'lun or fu'lun or fa'alun becomes af'al. Okay, so أعراضكم عليكم حرام وفي رواية حرام عليكم أي اعتداء بعضكم على بعض في ذمته أو ماله أو عرضه حرام عليكم كحرمة يومكم هذا في شهركم هذا في بلدكم هذا رواه الشيخان. So this is unbelievably important hadith, and unfortunately many Muslims we still don't understand this hadith, right? They're like, oh, don't say bad things about the Imam. Okay, why? What's the difference in saying bad things about the Imam, being bad things about other people? It's all haram. Or we're like, so and so is important, right? So you have to be respectful to him. So and so is not important, so you can be disrespectful to him, right? Or don't curse in the masjid. What, it's halal to curse outside the masjid? Astaghfirullah, it's Ramadan. So yeah, no, but so that halal outside Ramadan, right? So what happens is basically we, like the mushrikeen, they see sanctity in things, the objects. It's in the mushaf, it's in the masjid, it's in the place, it's in certain people, in and outside of that is profane, not sacred, right? There's taboo, which is the sacred state, and then everything else is profane, meaning not sacred, right? Where in reality it's opposite. Prophet said your wealth, your good name, your property, this is sacred. Everything is sacred, right? I remember I was I was going to sell a used car, right? A really bad used car before I left California. I had some problems, serious problems. I fixed this problem, fixed that problem. So I was like, I asked this guy who sells used cars, I'm like, which of these things do I have to say? Which thing, like, what's the orf? Like, it is a pretty badly used car, you know? So, like, what's orf? He says, are you selling it to a Muslim or to a non-Muslim? Guy asked me, right? So his mind is the sacred and profane, right? You might find, I don't know if it happens with the Arabs, but you find with some people, some cultures, they're like, like dating a Muslim would be really bad, you know? Whereas like dating like a gore is like whatever, you know? It's like she has no hurma, you know? She's like a white girl, she has no hurma. It's not a big deal. It's like the Jews, right? Just goyim, you know? It's not a big deal, right? Like that's not like Like committing zina with like a Muslimah is like, oh my God, that's like really bad because she has a hurma. But committing zina with like a non-Muslimah is like, oh, she has no hurma, so who cares? Right? That's how they think. So they think in the same way as the Jahiliyyah, unfortunately, many Muslims. Whereas every single thing is sacred. Every single thing is sacred, right? Right? Um, so it's really, really bad. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made it very clear, and he made it clear in front of everybody on Hajj. Very clear message, right? The message was lost on so many people, unfortunately. So everybody is sacred. Everything is sacred. Kids are sacred, right? Can you lie to kids? Right? Many cultures, yeah, Eastern cultures, you can lie to kids. Like they're just dumb kids, so it's okay. Like the fact that they have to be submissive to you is proof that you can just treat them like dirt. Like it's okay. Right? It's not like just lie to them. You're like, hey, I'll give you some candy if you do this. Oh, next time. It's like it's okay. It's just a kid. It's all right. But it's not. Every single person is sacred. Every single thing is sacred. Cup is sacred. The pig is sacred. Can you torture the pig to death? No, you cannot. Can't do that. Right? The ird of a kafir harbi, right? A kafir harbi is being raped. Can you allow that to happen? No, you cannot allow that to happen. It's not permissible. You see, there's one kafir harbi raping another kafir harbi, right? One kafir harbi killing another kafir harbi, fine. But one kafir harbi killing another, raping another kafir harbi, you have to stop that because it's the body is sacred from that point of view, at least. Right? وفيه تحريم المذكورات وتوكيد تغليظه. Very, very important, right? This is to do what then? To do with ghasb, right? So don't take things. Okay. Okay, so key concept, there's many ahkam that are not mentioned here at all, zero. Okay, so obviously we need to go back, and have a look at these things in Bab al-Fiqh. Okay, Bab al-Shufa'ati. الشفعة بإسكان الفاء وحكي ضمها شفعة, right? وهي لغة الضم. It means to put some two things together, right? الشفع means an odd number, an even number, right? So there's two things together, right? شفع. وشرعا حق تملك قهري يثبت للشريك القديم على الحادث فيما ملك بعوض. Excuse me. So it says حق تملك قهري, to take on ownership with something without their permission. قهري, that is the right of the sharik al-qadim, the previous partner, and we'll discuss what that means in a second. على الحادث, on the new one. فيما ملك, or ملك perhaps with a shadda, بعوض, that which was bought, not given, right? Or exchanged. For example, it could be mahar, right? Somebody gave property as mahar. You can also do shufa on that. والأصل فيها الخبر الآتي والمعنى فيه دفع ضرر موته. ها؟ فوته is not. معنى فيه دفع ضرر فوته, right? Not موته. Oh, مؤنتي. مؤنتي القسمة. The مؤنة. مؤنة القسمة, the cost of dividing up property. واستحداث مرافق, and having to put in new things that go with the house. مرافق كالمصعد I don't know what this here is, but والبلوعة, a new pipe. في الحصة الصائرة إليه. So now you have a piece of property, it's now divided up, and now you're going to have to put in new things like new stairs and new, I don't know what this munawwar is, maybe, I guess, lantern places or new pipes and these kind of things. So it's an inconvenience to people. So there's a to remove the دفع ضرر, to push that ضرر away. So عن جابر رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بمعنى أفتى بالشفعة أي استحقاقها في كل ما لم يقسم. What is it? Manwar? Manwar, like that? Yeah, okay, manwar. A place where there's light. Maybe like a place where you put candles on that. Manwar. Allah. Anyway, so it says بِالشُّفَعَةِ استحقاق في كل ما لم يقسم, something that has not, so shufa is in property that can be divided and has not been divided. So if it has been divided, there's no shufa in it. If it could not be divided because it's too small to be divided up, then there's no shufa. في كل ما لم يقسم أي من أرض مشتركة، فإذا وقعت الحدود أي بينت حدود أقسام الأرض المشتركة وصرفت الطرق بتشديد الراء وتخفيفها، صرفت وصرفت أي بنيت مصارفها بأن عين لكل قسم مصرفه فلا شفعة، رواه الشيخان. So there's a piece of land that is big enough to be shared and is shared and has one road, one pipe, one this, one that. Okay, and now you're going to divide it up. Okay, but if it's already been divided up in that they have their own roads, they have their own this, they have their own that, فلا شفعة. Then, or if it's too small, غير قابل للقسم أصلا للقسم أصلا, then there's no شفعة in it. وفي رواية لمسلم الشفعة في كل شرك أرض أو ريع أو حائط. ريع is like an area of agricultural land as well. So land, agricultural land, orchard. لا يصلح أن يبيع حتى يعرض على شريكه. Does not make sense. ربع. It could be ربع. You might be right, but I think it's ريع. Can someone look it up? وفي رواية Muslim, just type in أرض أو ريع أو حائط. You have ربع, Indi ربع. So that's like a quarter, meaning an area of an area, right? Like your quarters where you stay, ربع. But look it up, inshallah, because I think the word ريع is also used. It's like an area. لا يصلح أن يبيع حتى يعرض على شريكه. ربع. Okay, thank you. جزاكم الله خير. So it is ربع, not ريع. Okay. وفيه جواز الأخذ بالشفعة وهي عندنا إنما تثبت في أرض مع توابعها كما علم من هذه الرواية وشرط الأرض أن تقبل القسمة. Okay, that it's possible to be divided up. واستنبطه بعضهم من قوله في الحديث لم يقسم، قال لأن نفي للم يشعر بالقبول, it's dividable بالنسبة للمنفية بخلاف النفي بلا، فلا يقال للبصير لم يبصر، وكذا يقال للأكمة للأكمة لم يبصر، وكذا قاله كما قاله وما قاله أكثري لا كلي بدليل لم يلد فإنه okay, anyway, the point is here we go. والربع بفتح الراء وسكون الباء, there we go, الدار والمسكن والحائط والبستان، والمراد بذلك الأرض بتوابعها كما مر، واختصت الشفعة بها لأنها أكثر أنواع ضرر. وفي رواية مسلم لا يصلح أن يبيع حتى يعرض على شريكه، مع قوله في رواية لا يحل له أن يبيع حتى يؤذن, to inform شريكه، محمول كما في شرح مسلم على كراهة تنزيه, he shouldn't, you can go ahead and do it but you shouldn't. ومعنى ذلك لا يحل له حلا مستوي الطرفين, It's not a good thing to do. والكلام على شفعة لغير الشريك ولو جارا. وأما خبر البخاري عن أبي رافع في ضمن قصة الجار أحق بسقيه أي قربه. I think قربه. You have a فتحة there guys. قرب أي بسببه فليس نصا في الشفعة لجواز أن يكون المعنى أنه حق بالعرض عليه أو بالبيع منه ونحوه مع الخبر متروك الظاهر لأنه يستلزم تقديم الجار على الشريك. So that's something else. Basically saying it doesn't apply to them. It's not unconditionally وهذا وهو خلاف مذهب القائل بأن للجار شفعة. وأما خبر داود أبي داود وغيره الجار أحق الشفعة فاستغرب الترمذي بعد تحسينه له وأنكره غيره كالإمام أحمد وابن معين وغيره كما نقله السكي. Okay, so basically we are saying that it's something that is dividable and has not been divided up. And it does not apply to any neighbor unconditionally, rather something that's if it has been divided up already, such that they have separate marafiq, separate things that go with it, roads, etc., then it is no longer a harm to you if you sell it to somebody else. You do not have to sell it to your neighbor, and your neighbor cannot preempt the sale. Okay, makes sense, inshallah. Okay, so now we're on to musaqah wal ijara. So musaqah along is a problem because we're going to talk about musaqah and muzara'a and mukhabara. Okay, and we spoke about some of these things before. So what's the whole problem with musaqah? Musaqah is you have date palms, you have the land, and you have the physical trees. I'm going to work on them, and I'm going to, in compensation for my work, I'm going to get a percentage of the produce of these date palms slash grapes. Okay? So it's problematic because I don't know how much I'm going to get. So I'm going to do an amount of work. You don't know how much effort I'm going to do exactly. And I don't know how much I'm going to get. It's problematic. Okay? So in principle, it should be haram. Yeah, and sharecropping, even worse, because sharecropping specifically has a hadith against it. So sharecropping is also problematic. Okay? However, we have nusus that allow musaqa, and we also have certain nusus, as we'll see, that allow sharecropping as well. So he says, باب المساقة مأخوذ من السقي المحتاج إليه فيه غالبا وهو معاملة الشخص غيره على نخيل أو عنب ليتعهد بسقي أو غيره والثمرة لهما. Right? So it is sharecropping specifically in dates and grapes. Specific. That's musaqa. Okay? So we allow, in the Shafi school, we allow sharecropping as something secondary to a valid grape or date sharecropping. So, for example, there's this orchard. Okay? There's a vineyard. Okay, there's a vineyard. Qais is working. I left a farm in California. Qais is going to work on it. I'm not going to pay him, but he's going to get 60% of the grapes that come from it. Now, these grapes have made a nice shade underneath, so he's done some cabbages in between and some lettuce. So that's now sharecropping on something other than grapes and dates, but it's tabi', it's secondary. What's the principle, Sheikh Ammar, about things that are secondary? يغتفر في التابع ما لا يغتفر في المتبوع. Exactly. So you cannot, in the Shafi school, you cannot do sharecropping on strawberries or apples. But hey, there's an area, there's a little kind of like area of the farm that you have. It's in between the rest of it, And you can do that as something secondary in مساقات. So example of يغتفر في التابع ما لا يغتفر في المتبوع. Things are overlooked in things that are secondary that are not overlooked in things that are primary. Okay, so then it says والإجارة بكسر الهمزة أشهر من ضمها وفتحها الأجار والأجارة وهي لغة اسم للأجرة. So إجارة means the money that you give to somebody. وشرعا تمليك منفعة to give the ownership of the usufruct, right? So that's why you can sublease without permission. Because I have the use of this cup. I am now renting the cup to you. So you now own the use of the cup. So you can sublease without my permission. Because you own it. شرعا تمليك منفعة بعوض بشرط بشروط معلومة في الفقه والأصل في البابين الإجماع والحاجة إليها. Right? Notice والحاجة إليها. So there is gharar. Where is the gharar in where is the problem in renting out a house for 1 month? I'm going to rent out my house that I have in California to Qais for 1 month. Where's the gharar in it? What's he buying from me? So he pays me $2,500 to rent my house in California for this month. He's buying the use. He's buying the usufruct, correct? So the use of the house tomorrow, does it already exist? No. So I sold something that doesn't exist. لا تبيع ما ليس عندك. Don't sell what you don't have. Right? So is there gharar in it? Is there a level of gharar? Like what I just sold him may not exist. So it's not necessarily deliverable. I can't guarantee that the house exists. So we're going to say, oh, don't worry. If the house doesn't exist, we'll cancel the contract and just keep it so 17 days in to the calendar, to the Gregorian calendar, what's it called? The house exploded. Okay, so now I'm saying, okay, just I give you back, whatever, 13 30ths of the rent. So that's kind of like an if or contract, right? Like you can have it, but if it doesn't arrive, that's like saying that's almost equivalent to saying, hey, my car was stolen, but I'll sell it to you for dirt cheap for $200. And if you don't get it within a week, I'll give you half your money back. So that's haram. You can't do that. You cannot sell a car that's stolen to somebody because it's not deliverable, right? You can't do qimar. You can't gamble like this. You can't deal with uncertainties. You cannot deal with uncertainties. So how is it halal? Oh, it's an exception. Why? Well, because we don't all own houses, right? Put your hand up if you own a house in California, not me, right? So it's like, like most people have to rent because do you own a house on campus, Ammar? Do you own like part of the campus of the university? Is it normal for like everybody who goes to college that they go and build a house on campus? Not normal, right? In fact, even if you're a billionaire, you might not be able to do it. They say, no, you can't. Oh, I want to have my own house. You can't. I want to build a house right next to my lecture theater. You can't. We don't allow you. Sorry. Right? So the need to sell something that does not exist yet is great. And the gharar, is it huge? It's not huge. The building exists already. There's a house there. It may be destroyed. It may get nuked. It may get attacked by mutant cockroaches. That may happen, right? But that's not that likely, right? So the gharar is small and the haja is great. So we've mentioned this before, ladies and gentlemen, okay? That it's not just al-mashaqqa tajlibu taysir. Okay, it's not just the mashaqqa tajlibu taysir. It is when the mashaqqa is high, meaning the maslaha is high, and the mafsada is low. Does that make sense? It's not just so if you compare it to, for example, if you don't sleep with this woman, I'll kill you. So the mafsada is so high that it means you just have to die as a shaheed. You don't have a choice, right? You don't have a choice. Like there's sometimes the mafsada is so high that even if the maslaha is great, it doesn't allow it. And there are other scenarios where the mafsada is so low that any maslaha would tip it over. Who can give an example to do with the aura? The mafsada is very low, and so any small maslaha would tip it over, would make it halal. I give a hint, it involves only you and Allah. Exactly. So notice they say that you can expose your private parts لأدنى غرض. لأدنى غرض. So what they're saying is the need to change, to shower, to do this, to do that is common, right? And the harm is small. So the harm, like let's look at levels of harm. Zina, right? Things that are not nigh zina, right? Or the harm of children being born out of wedlock. That's way worse than zina. Zina is not as bad as things that are pre-zina. Pre-zina is not less than potential pre-zina. Exposing your aura in public, which may or may not even result in pre-zina, is not as bad. Exposing your aura in private is way less. Like you've gone all the way down, so there's harm in it. It's not haya in front of Allah. That's it. But when you go to the in terms of mafasid, it's way less than the other mafasid, way less. So the mafsada is low, so it only needed a small maslaha to tip over the balance. Okay, so it's actually, they tell us that, one of these things like, and you're learning fiqh is like, oh yeah, the fiqh is a balance of mafasid and masalih. It's like, okay, it's a bit nebulous. But actually, when you start to study fiqh more and more, you see this is everywhere. Like, it's everywhere you look. It's like they keep playing these games where they tip things like, oh yeah, it's difficult, you know? So it is small mafsada, big maslaha, it's fine. Big big mafsada, small maslaha, it's not okay, right? And then certain times it depends on how closely it's related to the actual goals, right? And how these things work out, right? Can you commit kufr internally at gunpoint? No, you can't do that. So at gunpoint, say you leave Islam in your heart or I'll kill you. You can't do that ever, right? uh, or if this woman's being raped, may Allah protect us, and she says, if you scream, I'll kill you. So she has to scream, she has to kick. If you don't stop kicking, I'll kill you. So she has to, I'll kill your son. So, oh, my child's gonna die, right? It's a very difficult situation to be in. May Allah protect us, right? But she can't give in. She's not allowed to because the mafsada is too high. Or torturing people in war, torture the enemy to get information. You can't do that. The mafsada is too high. Nuking the world, right? There's certain mafasid that are too high, right? And certain, etc. Okay. It says wal haja ilayha. Wa fil awwali, so i.e. basically if there were no hadiths, we would already know that it's halal through ijma', and we would already know this halal because the haja tad'u ilayhi. It's the kind of thing that the Sharia would allow. Does that make sense? The kind of thing that Sharia would allow. وفي الحديث وفي الأول وفي الأول أو مساقة حديث ابن عمر الآتي. وفي الثاني قوله تعالى فإن أرضعنكم فآتوهن أجورهن والأخبار الآتية بعد الخبر الأول. Now in irda', this is paying somebody to breastfeed your child. Where is the gharar in that? Where is the gharar in breastfeeding a child? So there's a book by Sheikh al-Islam Farid Dingle. It's called Al-Qawa'id Al-Udhma, the Sheikh Farid Dingle, Sheikh al-Islam. No. So it's something you come, Sheikh Qais, it comes actually in, you don't actually have to read any books because you actually see it. It will just come up in fiqh again and again and again. You actually notice it. It's like one of these things like, oh my God, you never noticed the system and it was there, you know? So you actually you'll just see it. It just takes like a lot of exposure. Like it's not really in fiqh maxims. it's there to some extent in Al-Qawaid al-Kubra by Qawaid al-Kubra by Al-Izz Abd al-Salam, but it's not super explicit. Yeah. There's also another book called Nazariyat al-Darura by Dr. Wahb al-Zuhaili. Nazariyat al-Darura. It's a small book. But in reality, it just comes in fiqh all the time. So where's the issue is I don't know how much milk you're going to give my child, right? I don't know how many times you're going to feed the child. Like some babies, right? Those with kids, it's like, oh my God, what's the worst thing that can happen you when the baby is nursing? They fall asleep like, oh, crying out loud. Like just drink properly and go to sleep. What happens is they fall asleep while nursing and they wake up again 2 minutes later, right? So like, how many times are you going to breastfeed? How much milk are you going to give? I don't know. Right? So there's gharar, but the haja is huge, right? Because I like, what else am I supposed to do? Right? Okay, shall I stop here and we'll come to these things inshallah later on inshallah. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. So there's many things qais in life and in ulum that nobody can tell you. Like I remember, and I remember the physical place standing next to Sheikh Amjad and telling me something I only understood it later on. Like you're telling me the words, but I don't understand what you're saying. My friend he said he asked Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. He said, "Give me a marriage advice." He said, "Be nice." I was like, okay. It's kind of like pretty general, right? Like, be nice. And it's like, it took him a long time to understand that. A long time. Be nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you can have you watched the Ninjago film? Ninjago movie?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think I watched it.
Get out of my class now. No, I'm joking. Watch it with your cousins, inshallah. It's really good. So there's a scene in it where what's it called? What's his name? The Lloyd. Lloyd is basically fighting his dad, his evil dad, and they need the ultimate. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get the ultimate weapon. You know, the ultimate weapon of destruction or ultimate whatever it is, and he finds it, right? So then he's like, Sensei Wu, like, we have it. Like, what's the issue? You know, so Sensei Wu says, be careful if the weapon of master of the ultimate weapon of destruction, whatever, falls in the wrong hands, it could be very bad. He's like, look, we have it. And he said, but it's in the wrong hands. Meaning Lloyd hasn't reached where he's supposed to be yet. So he has it. Like, I have the same tool. You've just told me the fact, but it just takes time for you to work that out. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't understand it. So it just takes time. Like it takes time to download. Like this is gonna take 10 seconds to download. You can't access the file until it downloads. So there's many things like that in fiqh, in aqidah, in tasawwuf, in nahu, whatever. It's like you're trying to get baked, but you're just not baked yet. So just don't get it, you know. I don't get what you're talking about, you know. So, there's things like that. So some of these things like it just takes time. It just takes more exposure. It just takes this, just takes that. And you can't really read about it. You have to just get more exposure and eventually like, oh yeah, the penny drops, like, yeah, I get it, you know, see it, seen it here, seen it there, you start seeing it everywhere. But before that, you can't, it's not something you can kind of tell people. That makes sense. Like,
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah,
and
I was.
there
Oh,
are
sorry, go
certain
ahead.
qawaid as well that are not unwritten. Like they're there in the books or not written. They're like the Sheikh talks about it, like you've noticed it, they've noticed it, but nobody ever spoke about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with them, and I'm familiar with why they exist, and some of them how they exist. Like, for example, مشقة تجلب التيسير ما يريد
Yeah.
الله ليجعل عليكم حرج.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, it's like I don't know if I'm asking the same question, by the way, so forgive me for that. But it's just like, where am I allowed to apply it? Where am I not allowed to apply
Okay.
it? And what's the
In
reason?
terms of, yeah, in terms of use, no, you gotta play dumb for the next forever.
Oh, subhanAllah.
Yeah. So basically, like, yeah, you like so for us right now, we're on the stage where we can start to observe. You can observe the art, but you can't do the art. Does that make sense?
Mm, mm, mm,
So
mm.
now you're like, I can't even observe the art. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't understand how you just did what you did. Why
Right.
was that perception? I don't even see that. Like, how
Yeah,
does that?
yeah.
So you first of all, like, you don't see the patterns, and then you start to see the patterns, And then the third stage is you are the pattern, right? That's something else, right?
Yeah.
I am kung fu, like to become the person, right? That's something else, right? But that's a stage that takes a long time. But the point is, we're trying to get to from the stage of these are just random exceptions or random explanations don't really make sense to like, oh yeah, I get the tune now, I get the tune. Like, yeah, it's kind of complex beat, but I get it. That's what we're trying to get to, inshallah.
And it's also a different between the madhab, meaning that for
To some extent, to some extent, because
okay,
some of
okay.
it isn't. So some of that's what you'll find. Sometimes there are اختلافات that are اختلافات سطحية. It's just superficial debate. Like we're actually
Mm,
looking at the scenario in exactly the same way, and there's actually
right.
sometimes there's no difference at all. It's just in the specifics.
I
It's
see,
like
I see,
like two politicians of the same way of looking at things, just answering different questions. We make it specifics, but we're not. It's not a fundamental debate. Sometimes.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Jazakallah khair.
الله يكرمك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.